Oh my gosh, it looks like we are live. Let me make sure my sound is good to go. Good morning, folks. Looks like we have at least 4 on right now. Live streaming Mike Seeklander. Hello. Wow, Tiny's on fast. IDPA is in the house. 9 folks on. We got at least 1 like. If you're jumping on with me right now and you hear me and see me, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that the audio and video is good. And click the like button. Facebook will show people that we are live if you click that like button. So we're talking about shotgun this morning, right? I've got 3 shotguns on the table here. We've got a wild show for you this morning. This is, by the way, part 2 of last week's show. And it looks like I got a bunch of people on this morning. Doug Grieg is on. Good morning, Jim Van Landingham. Is that right, Jim? Hopefully it is, probably. Mr. Mike May is on. Good morning, Gerald. How are you, sir? Dawn, Doug Willington. Hello, coin number 2225. Chris Marnius. Marnius. Hopefully that's right. Mr. TC, the doctor is in the house. Akeen. Hello, Akeen. Haven't seen you for a while, sir. Mr. Nick is on this morning. And Nick, I know I owe you an email or a text. I'm wrapping up some stuff. We'll be doing that soon. Glenn, good morning. How are you? Man, a bunch of coin members. Craig is on. Haven't seen Craig for a while. Good. Okay, hey, folks, 38 people live on in like 2 minutes, which is pretty darn impressive. As you know, I'm going to ask you to share real quickly and just throw it out there, for example, on our coin members groups or whatever else you want to throw it on. We're going to be talking about combat shotgun today. I have the Blue Rhino back on the show today. This is my Wilson Combat customized shotgun. Beautiful pump variety with a Surefire weapon-mounted light on the front of that bad boy. We're going to be talking about that as well. And if you missed last week's live stream, if you're just jumping on and you're wondering who I am, my name is Mike Seeklander. I'm going to be your tour guide today. I had anticipated going live in the live fire studio this morning, but we're still waiting on a couple of pieces of equipment there. Hopefully by next week, you'll see that incredible studio. But I will be your tour guide today. Of course, every time we do one of these live streams, we talk about safety first. We talk about the fundamental aspects of safety. So if you're going to handle a shotgun with me, if you're going to do any kind of shotgun handling, the pump it, load it, shoot it sequence, which we're going to talk about, please make sure that you have an unloaded and clear shotgun, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and show you unloaded and clear. I have an unloaded chamber, and with a shotgun, we talked about this a little bit last week. I can actually take my finger and I can push it inside there, right? So I know for a fact it's unloaded, making sure there's nothing inside the tube as well. So please make sure yours are completely unloaded. Now, I do have some dummy rounds. These dummy rounds, I actually just got these dummy rounds. These are pretty darn neat dummy rounds. They're made by A-Zoom, so they simulate the weight of a real shotgun shell. They've got a little primer pocket there, so if you're shooting a little bit older variant of shotgun, you can do some shooting without any damage to your firing pin. So these are made by A-Zoom. I think they make them in red and orange as well. Of course, my favorite color is blue, so I select blue. If you're on Team Blue, I love that. So please make sure you have dummy rounds. You might see the other 3 rounds that I'm using along with these on this shotgun. These are dummy rounds as well. You can see there's no primers. And I'd like you to do the same thing. So go ahead and do me a favor. Check your shotgun. Make sure it is unloaded. Make sure you have nothing but dummy rounds, because here's the deal, folks. Realistically, if we have a negligent discharge with a shotgun, that slug or buckshot or whatever you happen to have in the gun is going to go through and through and through and through and through and through. So double check. Also, you have to be willing to comply with all other safety rules. So all of the primary safety rules. Watch your trigger finger, watch your muzzle discipline. If you're going to dry fire, make sure you have a safe backstop and beyond. Looks like we have 54 live viewers on, which is awesome. I should have 54 likes. If you haven't clicked the like button, if you just jumped on, click like, share it to a group, share it to your wall, share it to your page, send someone a text message, tell them to come on to the Shooting Performance Facebook page or the IDPA Facebook page or the American Warrior Society Facebook page and join us, all right? Hey, Tina is in the house, by the way. I've been mispronouncing her name for literally years now. Good morning. I think we're going to talk to you tomorrow briefly. Hey, Will Parker from Montana. Steve Miller. Good morning, Steve. Hey, Wade from North Carolina. Good morning, sir. How are you? And Chris Edmondson, Las Vegas. Good morning, sir. Hello, Jan. How are you? This is Jan R. Bailey Martin. Nice to have you on. Let's see who else we have on. Of course, IDPA is in the house. Mr. Brian Schuler's on. Hopefully I didn't mean. Oh, John from Dallas, Texas. Good morning, John. And the other John from Alabama. How are you, sir? Jason is on as well. Man, Tony says, Mr. Diglo, Mr. Diggler. Okay, got it. We'll call you Mr. Diggler. That's funny. All right, so we're going to jump right into it as folks get on. Hey, Bob just jumped on, by the way. Nice to see you. We are talking about a couple different subjects, and I actually I had a couple shotguns on last week. We talked briefly about the setup of some of my pump shotguns. I also have my Benelli M4 next to the table, but my focus today is going to be the pump, running a pump shotgun. Understand that the principles of running the shotgun apply across the board. And full disclosure for those watching right now, the 65 of you, I'm going to be moving a little slow with this hand today. I got my thumb bent backwards in jiu-jitsu, and someone tells me that the thumb is supposed to do this, but it's not supposed to go the opposite way. So I don't know if you can tell or not, but my thumb's pretty swollen up. But I have good control of the shotgun, which is kind of a unique perspective or unique point, because in the case of this particular pistol grip, I have a pretty sore and injured right hand, and I can still have good control positions under my arm. But in terms of what we covered last week, we talked briefly about my shotgun setup. So if you're on here and you're like, well, Mike, why do you have this here, or why do you have this or that? Please consider going back to that show. Feel free to throw those questions up there, because I would expect we will have some repeat viewers, but some new viewers as well. So if you have a question about the shotgun, please throw it up in the comments as we go on. But today's lesson is more about the manipulation of the shotgun and how you actually train with it. Maybe some of the things you're going to think about during your dry fire drills. Now, we did talk about the potential of a pump shotgun, right, being inherently maybe slightly more reliable than a semi-auto shotgun. And I want to address that really briefly in terms of what I meant by that. So, because it can also be maybe a little bit more of a misleading statement, because generally speaking, with a semi-automatic system that doesn't have the right ammunition, or maybe is not lubricated right, or whatever else, because it's a semi-automatic system, we tend to have seen failures across the board in history. And that includes, back in the day when someone, whoever designed and started putting out some of the first semi-automatic handguns, and inherently the old school shooters would say, well, the revolver is a lot more accurate. You pull the trigger, it's a mechanical device. But the reality is, in terms of a revolver, revolvers have malfunctions as well. And when they do have malfunctions, oftentimes they're as bad or worse than a semi-automatic handgun. Pump action shotguns have malfunctions as well, right? And if we have a malfunction with a pump action shotgun, you're typically going to find that the primary cause of that is going to be user error, right? And I'll talk about the user error that we see in a second. But the secondary cause could be ammunition, right? It could be out of spec ammunition. It could be the fact that you have a shot shell that's a little bit too short. You could have a shot shell that has maybe a bad, crimp in it. Maybe something's going on with a shot shell. And if it's an ammunition issue, that becomes pretty serious, because sometimes they become lodged both up inside the tube. And when I'm talking about the tube of the shotgun, most of you probably know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the tube that actually holds the rounds, right? And if the shotgun shell out of spec becomes lodged in the tube, that's a real big issue, because we tend to have to, try to get it out in some way, shape, or form. Oftentimes they'll take a mechanical device. Sometimes you have to take the shotgun apart. If you have that kind of malfunction, well, you have a pugil stick, right? That's basically what you have in your hands. That's very, very rare. The primary cause of malfunctions with a pump action shotgun, by the way, before I say it, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here. What do you think? Go ahead and enter into the comments the primary cause of malfunctions is with pump action shotguns. What is the primary cause of malfunctions with pump action shotguns? Go. While I sip some of my medium roast incredible coffee. Type that in the comments. You know it. Look at that. James, I think, mentioned it first. Man, that was fast, dude. Holy moly. Feeding, Donald says short stroking. We got Jason says weak pump. Tanya says, show stroking. James says, yeah, you're exactly right. So the primary cause of a pump action shotgun is user error in the fact that they short stroke the shotgun, meaning they mount the shotgun, they fire the shotgun, and they either don't pump the pump enough to the rear and reset, so they didn't actually feed the shell all the way in there like it should, or when they pump the shotgun, they pump it and they don't fully pull it forward. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to talk about today. And by the way, in terms of your shotguns, you probably have, if you're shooting a pump shotgun and you're not familiar, and this is for those newer shooters, every time I pull the trigger and the hammer falls, right, I have the ability to pump the pump. The pump obviously is going to, the loading gate is going to feed the round out of the tube into the chamber itself. When I do that, once I pump the pump, if I wanted to pump the pump again, if I fully locked it out, I probably won't be able to do that. It's locked now because the firing pin is in position to fire the gun. The only way to get it open now is to use basically the pump release, right? And on this particular shotgun, it's up on the trigger guard. On my other shotgun, it's actually down lower behind the trigger guard right here, right? So understand that if you're manipulating your shotgun today, you're going to have to learn where that particular device is, right? So how do we manipulate and practice with a shotgun? Now, with this particular shotgun, the safety is on the trigger guard, right? So my safe position, the position that I would be in, let's say I grab this shotgun and it's the zombie apocalypse and I'm out in my yard hunting zombies. And I know there's some zombies out there somewhere in the woods. My position with this particular shotgun would be a fully loaded tube, one in the chamber, right? Hammer's cocked, right? And my finger position would be such that I would be riding the safety, right? So if I might be in a low ready position, right, where the gun is just outside of my vision, and this isn't a lot different than some of the principles we talk about in my AR program, right? So the gun is just outside of my vision, right? And I can mount the shotgun anytime I want to. When I find that threat, I'm going to click, take the safety off, mount the shotgun, center the front sight and the rear sight ghost ring, and fire my shot. Now, of course, we're following the same principles in terms of the stance and the platform. So when I talk about drop, drive, pull, press, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm dropping the elbow. I'm driving the shoulder forward. This becomes even more important with the shotgun, right? I'm pulling the shotgun into my body, and I'm primarily pulling the shotgun with my strong hand. That's my primary pulling hand, because you're going to find out here in a second that the other hand is pulling forward slightly on the pump. Some folks call this stretching the gun, and that ensures that my pressure points, or the pressure I'm using the shotgun, will keep the pump fully forward. Now, right now, I can't retract it, right? But remember, when I fire a shot, I'm going to be pumping the shotgun. So my pressure is drop, drive, pull, press my cheek down to the cheek weld, right? Okay, and then when I fire the shotgun, the second I fire, I'm going to pump the shotgun. Now, the pressure I'm putting on the shotgun itself in terms of the pump is pretty physical, right? I'm taking that shotgun. When I fire that shot, I'm running this all the way to the rear pretty aggressively, and I'm pulling it forward again. And I'm maintaining pressure forward on the pump again. Pressure forward, pressure forward, pressure forward, pressure forward. So the entire time I'm doing this, man, I'm almost working up a sweat. I'm pulling to the rear with this hand. I'm pushing forward slightly with this hand, right? So if you imagine when I shoot the shotgun, right, I've got a pre-center position. The shotgun, boom, is going to be recoil and recover. Part of this pressure forward with this hand is mitigating that recoil. This hand is taking the shotgun and I'm pulling it directly into my chest. I want a lot of pressure, because what you're going to find right away, if you haven't shot a shotgun a lot, is they buck quite a bit, right? The amount of the bullet weight, what we're trying to shoot out the barrel, directly relates to the amount of felt recoil, which is why a .223, for example, any .223, I don't care how hot it is, that the bullet weight is 55 grains, 62 grains, or whatever else, you could stand upright on one foot and fire an AR system and not have a problem, right? Well, with a shotgun, you have quite a bit more pressure. So if we don't have a good position of the shotgun centered on our body, the farther out the stock is, the more it's going to turn my body. So I'm a big advocate of having that stock as centered as possible. So once again, center that stock, drop, drive, pull, press, fire your shot. Okay, so if you're working your shotgun, you may consider putting it back on safe. And when you see me manipulate, I'm doing this because I can't reach the safety with my thumb here, right? So once I've taken it off safe, put it back on safe, you'll see me disconnect, rotate up, push with the thumb, which, by the way, hurts like heck today because I got a sprained thumb, right? And manipulate that safety back on, okay? Oh, by the way, let's see what I have here. Man, we have a bunch of people on. One thing about shotgun is you get your workouts. You spend 15 minutes dry fire going through the shoot it, pump it, load it sequence with a shotgun. I promise you'll get your workout today. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I saw a bunch of answers for my earlier question. By the way, 76 live viewers. If you're one of the 76 to 83 I saw a second ago, click the like button. Click the share button if you haven't done that. All of you that said short stroking the slide is probably the most common malfunction I see with a pump shotgun. The second is ammo. When I say ammo, it could be an ammo spec issue or ammo loaded improperly. One of you said the shot shell loaded in backwards. If you have a shot shell loaded in the tube backwards, that becomes a really, really big issue. Certainly fixable, but understand those malfunctions in terms of combat shotgunning or fighting. If you're in the middle of the fight, you in essence have a pugil stick, right, or a big long club for that moment in time, which is certainly why maybe consider carrying a backup handgun or whatever else. Okay. What else do we have on here? Good morning, folks. Hey, Will Melton's on. Alex, good morning. Puerto Rico's in the house. Hello, Bob. Dackle Stripper. Dackle Stripper. I probably pronounced that name wrong. I pronounce names wrong all the time. Oh, Brian says you're watching while your wife's in surgery. Well, I hope she's okay, Brian. Hope everything is going to work out great for you. And Ed from British Columbia. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay. Craig says you can't use Fiocchi ammo. Always fails to attract interest, and I haven't experienced that myself. But thank you for pointing that out. So, okay, so here's the first drill that I want you to work if you're actually working this with me. Okay, you need to have your pump pumped, right? And we're gonna. So with the rifle program, if you have my defensive rifle book, your defensive rifle training program, you get it on Amazon or my website. In one of the first drills that we work is what I call the multi-positional mount. Now, with a shotgun, there's one primary position that I would probably work more often, right? But I do practice building my mount from different positions. Let me show you the 3 different positions I'm talking about. The first position would be the low ready position, where I'm taking that shotgun, I'm making sure my trigger finger is up on the safety. If I have a different variety, I may ride the safety with my thumb, right? So in this particular case, this old school Mossberg 500-ish, it's got a wooden socket, so if I know that. My safety is on the top of the receiver, so my thumb would ride the safety. In the case of this particular gun, my safety is right there on the trigger guard, so my finger would ride that safety, right? So you may have to loosen your finger. So pump is pumped, shotgun is loaded. Riding the safety is one of our golden rules. So the first position I'm going to work from is I'm going to find the toe position of the stock itself, and that goes where it goes and it lives there. It never moves from this position. And this is in a, let's define this a little bit more better. This is what I would call a little bit more of an elevated threat. Like you grab the shotgun for a reason. You probably, I'm not talking about a position where you're walking down the side of a canal because you're bird hunting. I'm talking about a situation, this is combat shotgun in terms of the subject today, where you have to defend your home or your yard, right? So you think you may have to shoot it. So I'm going to have the toe of the shotgun mounted where I would want to, right? I may be pulling it slightly back into my body, and the muzzle is going to be just outside of my vision. I'm not going to be way down here typically, right? The muzzle is going to be in a position where I go to mount it. I can mount it pretty quick, and I can find my focal point through this ghost ring. In my case, I have, a post front, and I have a ghost ring rear. So I'm going to center the post in the center. So your drill from that position would be to mount the shotgun, right? Drop, drive, pull, press, fire your shot, pump the shotgun, and get ready to fire again. Now, if they're down, then my finger would come off the trigger, and I would load the shotgun. We'll talk about loading the shotgun here in a second, right? So that is position number one. This is the multi-position mount drill with the shotgun, okay? That is muzzle low. The second position I will practice might be muzzle high, where I'm going to take the stock, I'm going to tuck it under my shoulder. This might be a position where maybe there's a person or a vehicle in front of me, and I don't want to go low because I know I'm going to sweep their legs. So I may take the muzzle of the shotgun and I may move it up and around the person or the vehicle, but then I realize I have a threat. Now, once the position gets over there, to do the high mount technique, I'm simply going to push the shotgun straight out into position, disengage the safety, fire my shot, right? So once again, this is the high position. So muzzle goes high, mount the shotgun, drive it directly into the your cheek, right? So this aggressive motion is pretty aggressive. Both with my shotgun and my AR system, I'm aggressively driving the stock into my cheek. Fire my shot, pump the shotgun, okay? The third one that I practice is stock over shoulder. So I'm going to take the shotgun, okay, and I'm going to retract it, and I'm going to go stock over shoulder. This is something where maybe I had to get really close to a position. Maybe I want to open a door. Maybe I'm trying to retract the shotgun away from someone. Maybe I need to run over there. And when I go from the running position, instead of keeping the shotgun in contact with my body, stock comes over my shoulder, and I run wherever I need to, and then I can slide the gun right back into place. So once again, stock over shoulder. So my stock over shoulder is as follows: slide the gun straight into position, fire my shot, pump the shotgun. And notice every time I pump the shotgun, every time I fire the shotgun, I'm pumping the shotgun as well. So anytime you pull the trigger, your immediate action with a pump shotgun should be to pump the pump. Always feed it again. Get it ready to fire again. And if you shoot a lot of AR, or semi-automatic handgun, your brain may not be in a state where it's going, hey, manipulate it or feed it again. Because everything else we shoot, to and including probably a double action revolver, is an automated process where we fire the shot, we follow through, reset the trigger, or roll back to the trigger in a revolver. In the case, with the shotgun, once we fire that shot, we've got to feed it again. We're firing, feed it again. Fire, feed it again. Fire, feed it again. So every time you pull the trigger, feed it. Okay? You can maintain that trigger finger position if you want to. Then when you decide you no longer want to shoot, the finger comes off the trigger and the safety goes back on. Okay? Tiny says, everyone knows you don't have to have to load a shotgun. Simply racking the gun in the privacy of your own house will have half the people in your country trembling and hiding in the bits. Maybe so. I'll tell you what, though. I think, believe it or not, there is some validity to the sound of, you walk out in your yard, you're like, here's my shotgun. Of course, you'd have to have it not loaded in the first place. That sound is going to scare the bejeeminy Christmas out of folks out there in your, I don't know, whatever. For me, though, his point is well taken. My shotgun is going to be loaded and ready to rock and roll, right? So I've got one in the tube. I don't need to pump it. And we talked about, by the way, on last week's live stream, we did talk about the condition of the shotgun and, the patrol-ready type shotgun, or, how back in the day I was taught to carry a shotgun in the patrol car, and then actually how that positioning has kind of varied a little bit. I think Joey Russo was on and talked about the differences as well, by the way. Okay? All right, let me see what I have as far as questions, folks. If you have a question, you can throw it up there, and we're going to go from there. We're going to talk a little bit about Michael says, racking the scare gives away your position. I completely agree, Michael. I think that's a TV technique. There are a lot of TV techniques out there, right? Mr. Mikhail Schussberg says auto shotgun is better, less prone to fail due to human factor. Maybe not. I'm not certain. I know that you have what you have. So a lot of folks may have a good old school pump action shotgun. I know that back in the day there weren't really any semi-automatic shotguns that we trusted for our patrol shotguns. We carried a pump shotgun. Of course, the Benelli M4 sitting there on the desk next to me is fantastic. It's incredibly reliable, assuming I have good ammo. If I have light ammo, that gun will tend to short stroke the ammo just a little bit. So beware of that. Now, I think some of the current newer, semi-automatic auto-loading shotguns are incredibly reliable. I would trust them just as much as I would trust any AR system or handgun. So I would, to an extent, agree with that system. But if you got a pump, you got a pump, right? So let's talk about the next part of the equation. We talked about the multi-position mount, where I may work my mount, where I'm mounting the shotgun, taking the safety off, drop, drive, pull, press, fire in the shotgun, pump it, and get ready to fire again. Okay. We talked about the muzzle high position, where I'm going from muzzle high, roll the gun into position. Let me give you a better view here. Safety comes off, fire the shotgun, pump it, right? Safety back on. And then what I call the stock over shoulder. Once again, roll the gun into position, fire the gun, pump the shotgun, and the pressures I'm doing on the shotgun. If you're just joining me, by the way, right now, I've talked about, extending and pulling forward on the pump to make sure the pump is fully engaged and pulling the shotgun rear into my body. Because understand, when you fire the shotgun, any space you have, any lack of pressure between the stock and your body is going to be an issue. This thing is going to move to the rear pretty aggressively. So the more you pull that stock into your body, the better off you're going to be. By the way, one of the bigger mistakes I see with posture is folks that are too upright. When they go to fire the shotgun, boom, 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 starts to push them on the heels. By the way, shooting a shotgun is fantastic for recoil control. If you really want to learn how to control a long gun, spend a week shooting a shotgun. When you go back to AR system, the gun won't move at all. So I need to take my upper body posture, right? And I can brace with my strong side foot. So my right foot is back a little bit, but generally speaking, my hips are square. So if I give you just a little bit more of a downward camera angle, you'll see my hips are generally pretty square to the target. I may brace with my right foot, but my hips are pretty square, and the position of the shotgun on my body is what's going to allow me that recoil control itself. Okay? All right, got to give my thumb a break for a second, folks. All right, if you're just joining me, folks, we are talking combat shotgun today. And the next thing we're going to address is the load sequence. And then we'll do a little bit of a discussion on maybe selecting a different shell if you needed to. And then last but not least, the emergency reload. So Donald asked about the Knox recoil reducing stock. And honestly, I have not shot that stock. So I can't really give very, very good feedback on that. Okay. All right, I don't see any other questions. Let's talk about the load sequence. So when I'm working my dry fire drills, oftentimes I would like you to consider a sequence if you're shooting a pump shotgun. That sequence would be shoot it if you have a threat. Every time we shoot, we do what? We pump. That's right. And then every time we pump, we either fire again or get ready to load. Now, when I fire, if I fired 1 round, I load 1 round. If I fired 2 shots, I load 2 shots. If I fired 3 shots or more, I'm going to load until I can no longer load. It might look like this. So from the muzzle high position, engage, right? Safety goes off. Build my position. Give you a little better camera direction. Fire my shot. Pump. Follow through. They're down. Finger comes off the trigger. Shotgun goes to a control position. Now, when you're loading the shotgun, you can do it in 2 different places. You can do it up on your shoulder, right? Most of you are going to be better served going to a control position just under your arm. Now, back in the day when I shot a Benelli M2 and 3 gun, I loaded mostly on my shoulder. I'm strong enough and have the ability to load on my shoulder, but I would also take the shotgun, right, and tuck it under my armpit and camp the shotgun slightly like this if I were trying to move to another position, because this really secures the gun. If the gun is up here, and it's very hard for me to hold today with my thumb, the gun is moving all over the place, right? It's moving a lot. And the more the gun is moving, the harder it is to load, right? So I fired a shot, I follow through after pumping the pump, and then my hand comes straight back. I'm going to find the first shell in my carrier, I'm going to pop it out, and I'm going to shove it in the tube. So now I'm back to the loaded position. If I wanted to during my scan, if the threat's down, no additional threats, I may go to that safety position and engage the safety, okay? So basically I shot a round, right? I pumped it, and then I reloaded that one round that I shot, right? So if you wanted to work that sequence, if you would set your shells up in your shell carrier, it may look like this. And this is going to be a very deliberate process, right? Mount the shotgun, build the pressure, fire the shotgun, pump the shotgun. He's down, finger comes off the trigger, reach back, grab the shell, and now you're back up, and you can put your safety back on if you want to. And for me, I'm just opening the loading gate, right? And I'm popping the shell back into my hand. You can oftentimes take the shotgun shell out of the loading gate directly, but, you know, for me, it's a little easier for my manipulation to do this today, okay? So to work the shoot it, pump it, load it sequence, you can pick a number of shots. So in this case, I'm going to fire 2 shots, and I'm going to load how many rounds? 2 rounds. So I'll pick a different stock position. So I'm going to go stock over my shoulder. So I'm going to mount, fire my shot. I pumped it automatically. 2 shots. Okay, they're down. Finger comes out of the trigger. I know I got to load 2 shots. So I'm going to grab one from the shell carrier, second one from the shell carrier, load. Now I'm back up. I can go safety back on if I wanted to. Okay. Now I can start to do the next drill and, you know, let my dummy rounds hit the ground. But to be honest with you, it's very difficult for me to find the dummy rounds oftentimes on a live stream. So I'm just going to pump them out of my hand. Okay. So that was a shoot 2, load 2. I'm going to do one more for you, and then we'll talk real briefly about how I practice the emergency reload. Okay. So safety goes back on. So if I were working shoot 3, load 3, I'll give you a different muzzle direction. Let me go with a different stock position. I'm going to go with the high stock position. Mount the shotgun, drop, drive, pull, press, fire, pump the 3rd time. They're down. Finger comes off the trigger. Tuck the shotgun. And when I'm reloading the shotgun, I don't necessarily have to look for what's going on. Now the shotgun's loaded again. Safety back on. And go from there. So that's how you might work the shoot it, pump it, load it sequence, right? And you can pick any number of rounds. In my case, I've got 4 shell carriers with shells on my carrier, right? So I may load and do this with 4 different shells, right? So I'd already dropped one of my dummy rounds, which is why I always have a backup, right? So you can work that shoot it, load it sequence if you would like to. And it's just a deliberate process where you're always pumping the pump after you shoot, right? And then you're loading the number of rounds you fired. If you want to do this live fire, it's a fantastic drill. Go through a 1, 2, 3, 4 drill, mount the shotgun, 1 shot, pump, follow through, load, set it back up again or safety back on, 2 shots, pump twice, of course. Safety, follow through, load 2. 3 shots, load 3. 4 shots, load 4, right? And you're always loading the shotgun. Now, when you're running a drill like this, eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to run out of ammo, right? So you finally, let's say you're running your 6, in my case, I got 6 shells in the tube. I'm loading from my carrier, right? And I finally get to the point where when I go to mount the shotgun, right, and fire that shot, boom, I actually get a click, right? So I know for a fact that the gun should have been loaded because I pumped it after the last shot, but I got a click. So I know in my mind this is an emergency reload situation. It's no different than an emergency reload with a handgun or rifle. Of course, it's an emergency because I'm out of ammo. Now, some of you may automatically have pumped through the shotgun and then try to fire again thinking maybe you had a malfunction, but you realize right away, okay, I don't have a malfunction. I'm out of ammo. So now watch what I do. I'm going to take the pump. I'm going to pump it to the rear. And I'm going to reach up over the top of the gun, and these shells that are upright are my emergency reload shells. I'm going to grab that shell, I'm going to rotate it in the gun, and now I'm going to be ready to fire again. So that's my emergency reload drill, right? And the reason I have the shells up is for that. I can also have a secondary shell up for 2 emergency reloads. This is typically how I will have my shell carrier set up. I might have a third one upright for a slug, although we'll talk about slugs here in a second. But the bottom line is the manipulation is pretty simple, right? Once I realize that I tried to fire the gun, right, there's no ammo left. Let me get nice and close to the camera. I fired, I pump the shotgun pump to the rear, rotate, feed, and back into position, okay? Now, some of you may say, well, Mike, why don't you grab a shell and load underneath, right? Back in the day, some of the guys would load, they'd grab a shell under and load like this. It might look like this, right? I found that to be less consistent than over the top. I found, for me, and you could do it either way. Get my gun around there. See, I'm working it out. I'm working for you, folks. 69 live stream viewers. I can't believe we didn't hit 100. That's crazy. That's too bad. But anyways, doesn't matter. You all have fun. I'm having fun. So for me, I have found that by grabbing the shell and coming over the top of the gun, I'm much more consistent with my loading process or my emergency reload shell. Okay? So to set up your emergency reload drill, just mount the shotgun, fire. If you want to try to fire again, go ahead. Leave the pump to the rear, and then fire your shot, right? And then you can pump it out, put it back in there, right? Fire, pump, out of ammo, fire, okay? And then I'm going to pump simply to set it up again. So the simplest version of this is pump goes forward, right? Fire your shot. There's my emergency reload, okay? That's not too bad, actually, for an old dude that hasn't touched shotguns for a long, long time. Okay, let's see what I have here. I know I have some questions. Mario says, I'm clumsy. It is not working for me. Give me an AK. That's fine. If you say shotgun is too clumsy for you, I get it, man. You gotta face what you face and realize, hey, this works for me or this doesn't work for me. So good question. So Will Parker said, mini shells, benefits other than extra shots compared to low quality, low recoil. Here's the deal with shotgun. I have shot primarily full-size shells. Back when I used to carry a shotgun, the only time I've carried a shotgun was on duty as a police officer. We carried full power, full-size shells, as well as full-size slugs and buckshot. So I haven't shot a lot of mini shells. I'm not opposed to mini shells, but like with any other ammo-related or gun-related question, my first order of business would be to test them. So I would get maybe a bunch of mini shells in this particular shotgun, load it up, see how many more I can get it to, but I'd go out and shoot it. I'd go out and pattern that ammo, and I'd find out if they work well. And if they did, I don't have a problem. Like we talked about briefly in the last live stream, a good buddy of mine was building these short semi-automatic shotguns in 20 gauge many years ago because he felt most people, especially smaller individuals, could leverage more control on a 20 gauge than a 12 gauge. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, ballistically, they're going to be very, very solid as well. So that's certainly an option to go. Okay. Let's see if I miss anything else. Okay. Gerald talks about shotgun running. James, to be very honest with you, James, I'm not going to cover slings a lot. I do have a sling mount on the front of this gun, right? And I have an attachment point to the rear. Back in the day, I used to have a sling in my shotgun, and I think it's exactly this. The sling would be like this, so you have what they call African carry, if I remember correctly, which allows you to take the shotgun, slide it into position, and engage it pretty quickly. I'm not manipulating it very fast today because of my thumb. But no, if I'm grabbing a shotgun out of the safe, to be full disclosure, I love shotguns. I enjoy shooting with them. I enjoy training with them, but I don't shoot them a lot. And if I were to grab a gun out of a safe right now, it would be a suppressed AR. or a full-size handgun. And most of you probably know this because you've been on my live stream. A full-size handgun with a weapon mounted light combination. But as far as slings, you know, the Benelli I have, Mr. James, hope you're doing well, is kind of a modification of a single point attachment. I know this looks really crappy. The reason I have this is because I actually have a sling attachment point, and there is a nut inside this Benelli M4 that's probably Loctite that I could not get off to attach the sling attachment point. For me, I would probably default to a single point sling and only utilize the sling to transition if the shotgun didn't work. I don't think that's the best for hunting. I don't think that's the best for climbing, but it's the best for me in terms of my home defense, tactical defensive type shotgun. Okay, so good question. And Mr. John Shriver, I think I saw you from Oklahoma. Betty is on. Good morning, Betty. And let's see what else I have here. Immersion reload different for lefties. Wow. Good question, Liberty. I would suggest it's going to be different, but I'm not going to propose to have practiced a lot of emergency reloads for a lefty. You know, if I were to experiment with it, why not? On live stream, when I fired that shot, right, and I realized, okay, crap, I'm out of ammo, bolt goes to the rear. It depends on how you have your ammo set up. You could certainly reach under the gun and over the top. I would probably find myself still reaching over the top of the gun, popping that next round in, and emergency reloading it. But honestly, I have not played with that emergency reload with my left hand a lot. It's just one of those skills that I haven't worked a lot. I would say that the principles are going to be the same. Remember, the principle of the emergency reload is you fire the gun, you realize you're out of ammo, pump goes to the rear, load over the top of the gun, or for some of you that prefer it to go under the gun, I don't like that method. I found this is faster and consistent for me. I screw that up less, maybe is what I'm trying to say. So that's my choice as far as a load itself. Okay. Brian asks, is speed loading 2 stacked rounds at a time applicable to defensive shotgunning? So I'm not certain what you mean by that, Brian, but I do want to show you all. Okay. So I'll briefly want to show you this carrier, and then we'll open up for some Q&A. I don't have a lot of time. So this is a shotgun shell device, loading device, that I might have used in 3-gun back in the day when Mike Seeklander did some 3-gunning. And I didn't do a lot of 3-gunning. Now, these were back in the day were set up so I could clip them onto my Safari Land pouch. But back then, they weren't doing the 2 shotgun shell load stuff kind of deal, where now they have those 2 or 3 shotgun shells that are stacked vertically. You grab 2 shells and you shove them in the tube. That's a completely different loading technique that I was trained with or even did during 3-gun back in the day. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and put this bad boy onto my belt, if I can get it on my belt. Okay, and then I'm going to talk to you real briefly about loading. And we used to call this a weekend load. I learned this, I think, initially, maybe from Taryn Butler. There's stuff all over me there. Okay, so the concept there in the weekend load is, you can see what's going on here. Once I've realized I need to load the shotgun, I go to a control position, right? So it might be about right here, up on my shoulder. For me, it's probably going to be under my armpit. I'm going to reach down, right? And I'm either going to put the middle finger or the ring finger on the edge of the shotgun shell, right? And the goal is to be able to grab shotgun shells. So I'm controlling 4 shotgun shells with my hand. Now, granted, you could certainly load one at a time from that position if you wanted to, or even reach down and grab 2 shotgun shells, right? And then when I load, I'm going to load them right up into 2. So I may grab 2 and 2, right? So there's a way to do this, and I can load 4 at a time. I'll show you that here briefly. But to answer your question, I'm always going to advocate that you load whatever you shoot, right? So if you load, if you shoot 3 shots, I would like you to load 4 shots or 3 shots. I'm trying to load it. So if I've fired 3 shots, I want to load, right, 3 shots. So I go to my position of control, reach down and find my 3 shotgun shells. Okay, and back in the day, for 3 gunners, if you could get about 1 shotgun shell per second loaded, that was pretty darn good, right? Like a guy loading 4 shotgun shells in the gun in 4 seconds or less was pretty good. Later on, the guys got so fast, they were loading 4 shotgun shells in a couple seconds, okay? A full 4 shotgun shell load may look like this. I fire my 4 shots, right? Go to position of control, reach down, grab my 4 shotgun shells, load them, and all I'm doing is press. These are right in my finger, right? Press, press. And press, back up into the position where I'm going to fire the shotgun, okay? These shotgun shells are kind of hard to manipulate with my arms full of stuff. All right, so let's see what else we have down here, folks. Yeah, so Pat talks about the shotgun shells hanging in patrol cars where potentially a perp could get their finger on the cage and pull the trigger. He says that's the loudest dry fire you've ever heard, right? So there was no round in the chamber. Right. And so that patrol-ready shotgun, we talked about that last week. And one thing that I learned actually from someone on the live stream last week was the fact that the patrol-ready technique was also because the hammer in some of the older shotguns might potentially slip off the sear during an impact with the shotgun. Maybe the patrol car gets in a wreck. So the general state of a shotgun back in the day, right, was to pull the trigger, right? So trigger was pulled, right? Okay. Pump, and the pump wasn't pumped at that point in time. So now the pump is released, right? So I can pump the pump, safety back on, right? And then load the tube with your 6 shots. So when you grab the shotgun out of the rack, you grab the shotgun, you pump it, and then you're ready to rock and roll. Of course, safety would be on, so you'd have to take the safety off, but that was a true patrol-ready shotgun back in the day. But I didn't think about that. Good point, Pat, on why folks were carrying those shotguns in those manners. Okay, good point. Doug Wellington, 100% box magazine shotguns. I do have a box magazine AR style shotgun in my safe that I wanted to match. I have not shot them a lot. Back in the day that I carried a shotgun, we didn't have many box style shotguns. And then later on in 3-gun, the only box style shotguns were the, what was the Russia shotgun that it was an AK variant that you could have a removable magazine. For me, it's a no-brainer if you're going to shoot a AR system or whatever else, a semi-automatic feeding type shotgun where you can load a true magazine in the gun, then your manipulation becomes more like your AR system or your rifle or your PCC. And Tim, you're welcome as well. So, Greg Knox, Portland, Tennessee. Did I start late? Nope, did not start late. Started exactly at 7:30, Mr. Greg. Yeah, Sega. Chris, that's exactly right. Yep. Okay. Chris, good question. What are the properties to look for in a shell carrier? Great question. This particular shell carrier, and I don't know, this is actually the one that Wilson Combat put on the shotgun for me. I said I wanted a shotgun on the left-hand side of the gun so I can manipulate and run shells on it. It's pretty darn good. It has some, basically some plastic and some rubber inside the shell carrier itself. So the shells themselves are pretty darn stiff in terms of getting them out, which I like because if you're shooting a shotgun a lot during recoil, you'll find the shells will slip out. Now, contrast that with, maybe an old school, like an Uncle Mike's or whatever else shell carrier, which was basically a Velcro type system. I used to have a Velcro system and I could take my shell carrier and I could adjust it forward or backward if I wanted to. Looks cheap, but if you have the right system, and you have the right tension, they're pretty good. Eventually, that will wear out in terms of a shell carrier, so I would probably be more likely to select something that I have on my Wilson Combat shotgun. But you're going to want to have pretty good tension in the shell carriers because remember, when I'm carrying shells in this sucker, I'm carrying them upside down. So every time the gun recoils, that shell is going to have a tendency to want to come out of the shell carrier. I really, really, really like this setup, right? So in this particular case, I would have 2 emergency reloads set high, and I would have 4 low 2 shells, and I would have 6 in the gun. So just loading the shotgun, I'm going to have 10 shots and I'm going to have 2 emergency reloads. That's 12 shots of whatever I'm shooting with the shotgun to solve the problem. If I can't solve the problem with 12 shots with 12 gauge, I probably need to run from the problem, find a different problem to solve, or whatever else. So that's my thought process. I probably would not have, in the middle of the night, I probably would not have grabbed my 4-shot shell loader, but I'm not opposed to it. Maybe you're a patrol officer and you're still carrying a shotgun, or you're in a situation where the shotgun is the applicable tool. Maybe you're traveling to a different country where you can't have an AR system. Well, in that case, yeah, you might run 3 or 4 4-shell holders. Now, another question you may say is, well, Mike, if you're doing the shooting, pump it, load it sequence, right? So I've engaged the shotgun, I've fired it, I've pumped it, I fired it, I pumped it, I fired it, I pumped it, and I want to load now. I want to reload. If I have a shell carrier here, I can select based on the speed of my load here or here which one I want to use. So maybe in a situation where it's maybe hot and heavy, right? The threat is still very close to you in the area, I may load from the gun and keep it right here close to me. Okay, and if I have more time, I may reach down to my belt and start loading from here. And I could also use these shells to replace the shell carrier shells in my gun, if that makes sense. So, not that you asked that, but I thought I would answer that as well. All right, let's see what else I have, folks. I don't have a ton more time. S-Tech. Doug says, check out the S-Tech cards. I will. I'm not sure what that is. Okay. Gen 12 makes a great mag-filled shotgun. Great. I'll check that out as well. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll check that out. Yes. So, Jim, I am pulling the stock into my, keep in mind, this is the position of the shotgun. The more the shotgun is out of my body here, the more leverage it has to turn me. So I want the shotgun as centered as possible. And by the way, this is not wing or clay bird shooting protocol 101. Those guys and their cheek weld and their mount is completely different based on what they're trying to see and what they're trying to shoot. I am trying to control the shotgun recoil, so it's as centered as possible. But once I mount it, I'm taking the shotgun with this hand and I'm pulling it into my chest, and I've got a little bit of pressure forward on this hand, right? A little bit of pressure forward on this hand to make sure that the pump stays shut at all times. Okay. How good does your back have to be to effectively handle a shotgun? Lisa, when you're talking about back, I think you're talking about your strength or your spine. The reality is this is a very heavy, robust weapon system, right? So if you've got a bad back and you're putting a lot of pressure on the front of it like this, that becomes a problem. But remember, if you look at my body positioning, right, it's pretty athletic, right? I've started to squat or almost a deadlift position. I've got my upper body forward, right, and aggressive, so I can fire from that position. It's a pretty aggressive position to fire from. So I'm constantly controlling the recoil, and I'm maintaining the pressure on the button. Okay. L4S2. Lisa, I would say that the only way to find that out is just to give it a, no pun intended, give it a shot. Let's see. By the way, if you're jumping on and you're looking at Mike Seeklander talking about a shotgun, I'm not necessarily saying that a shotgun is the best self-defense tool for you. We're covering in this spectrum because I've got a lot of requests to cover shotguns. So last week we did Shotgun 101 in terms of gear and setup and selecting a shotgun, pistol grip versus non-pistol grip. If you haven't seen that live stream show, go back to that live stream show. And then this week we talked about the manipulation of the shotgun. So that's why I would strongly recommend, certainly, for me, my home defense handgun or home defense system is probably going to be a handgun right there in my quick access safe with a weapon mounted light, right? It's going to be a full-size handgun, high capacity. All right, folks. Chris says engage your core. Engage your core with everything. I agree with that, Chris. Yeah. All right. Doug says you have the Gen 12 BSM with the suppressor. My one to rule them all. Nice. I like that. I'm going to have to check out some of this new shotgunning gear a lot of folks have recommended, okay? So, Greg, I think you're asking about the Mossberg 940 Pro, the Red for competition. I would love, sounds fantastic, but I could tell you there are 4 shotguns I've shot quite a bit. It's going to be, I probably shot more from this bad boy than anything else. My original Mossberg 500, this actually might be a 510 or something, because it has the wood stocks, right? Bought this with my buddy Rich Brown many years ago at a Walmart. They had a sale. We both bought a shotgun, bought a bunch of shot shells, and went out and taught ourselves shotgunning. I think we had the Modern Combat Shotgun book made, maybe written by Masad Ayub, I'm not sure, and we ran pump shotguns forever, right? Later on in life, and I have it in the safe right there, I got a Benelli M2, and that was my 3-gun shotgun. It was the shotgun of the day. It was the shotgun that Taryn Butler told me, and maybe, I don't remember who else taught me how to load shotguns. Taught me to get, or told me to get, that's what I got, and I ran that for a long time. Later on in life, I got my big old beautiful Benelli M4 because I was a Benelli fan, so I got a good combat shotgun similar to what the Marine Corps was carrying, to run that a little bit, put a rail on it, put a light on it, stuff like that. And then last but not least, I got the Blue Dino. This is the Blue Dino, customized by Wilson Combat for my live streams and some of my tutorials and teaching. These are the shotguns I've shot most. So I can't, honestly, I wish I could answer that question about the 940 and a couple different variants. About the only thing I would say is, hey, Mossberg, send me a 940 with Pro with Red Up, and I'll test it and I'll give you some good feedback for it. But I don't have those shotguns. I'm sorry. And Jim, you're welcome. So John, we talked about that. When you're talking about pushing and pulling, John, either you missed it or you got on late. We talked a lot about the pressure of the shotgun in terms of mounting the stock, pulling the stock into my body. I am applying forward pressure with the hand to keep the pump closed. So I'm pulling the shotgun with this hand. I'm pushing the pump forward with this hand, but I'm not necessarily really trying to stretch the shotgun a lot. I'm not opposed to that. We talked about that on members Q&A recently. The principle there is, when I fire that shot with the shotgun, it's really important that I'm pumping and fully stroking the pump, pull it forward, and I'm mounting that shotgun stock pretty much exactly how I mount the AR stock. Okay. All righty. All right, folks. I have, I've been talking and jabber for almost an hour. Hopefully you enjoyed shotgun. We had some pretty good showing, not quite as good a showing as last week. But remember, if you're rocking and rolling with your shotgun, I would say that a shotgun is as high or higher manipulation skill set as any semi-auto out there. So if you desire to be a shotgunner, that's what you want to load and shoot and defend with, or compete with, and that's a completely different subject, then take the time, work on your dry fire drills, work on the shoot it, pump it sequence. Go a little farther. Add maybe a place for your ammo, whether that's a shell carrier on the shotgun or a 4-shell holder on your belt. Work the shoot it, pump it, load it. Remember, we're always going to load what we shot. So shoot it, pump it, and then load what you shot. So if you fired 2 shots, load 2 shots. If you fired 1 shot, load 1 shot. If you fired 3 shots, load 3 shots. And always, last but not least, always, when I fire that shot with that shot, I always have to pump it and get ready to fire again. I may decide not to fire it again, but if I fire the shotgun, I'm always pumping it. Don't ever practice the bad habit of this. That's a bad habit. Fire it, pump it. Okay, now I'm done shooting, but I'm ready to shoot the shotgun again. Okay, so there you go, folks. That's all I have. Thanks. Have a great day. Have a great Wednesday night, weekend. Next week's live stream will be a subject that I have not decided on yet. So if you have a request, type it in the comments. If you have a request for a live stream or a series of live streams coming up, haven't decided what I'm going to do for January, but I'm certainly open to your suggestions. A lot of times we begin some of the competition handgun cycles again. But hey, type it in the comments, and then I'll read the comments and go from there. If you're going to run a shotgun, you got to work with it. So don't forget, put in the time, put in the practice. Get your 50. We talk about that all the time on the live fire app. Get your 50 reps in, right? Do the work, put the time in, and that's it. Until then, folks, train hard.